Disclaimer.
But why was it waiting for me beneath the wall?
My name is Pastor Jonathan Reed. I'm 38, living in Lexington, Kentucky, USA. On September 3rd, 2021, I died for 9 minutes.
I have been married 12 years to the woman who still says my name like a prayer. Yet in the months before that night, I did not know how to answer her, not honestly. We live in a modest brick house on a quiet street in Lexington, Kentucky, the kind of street where people know one another by porch light and the weight of their greetings. My office at the church is lined with Bibles and counseling forms. My sermons are carefully written and practiced until the cadence feels like truth. I sit in the pulpit and tell other people how to guard their hearts, how to keep vows, how to be faithful when no one is watching. I stand there with a steady voice and a face used to being looked to for direction. While behind the doors of our home, I carried a private life I could not confess. When my wife would reach for me at night, I would drift away in the small ways that do not register as betrayal until they become the pattern of betrayal itself. She would ask about the day. Simple things, who I had met, whether I had eaten, whether the counseling went well. I would answer in a way that covered more than it revealed. My sentences were neat. My silence was not. I would tuck my phone out of sight, the screen a soft light under my shirt when she left the room. I would delete conversations that felt like proof of another life. I would pray aloud with the congregation and then pray silently to be kept hidden from the one person I had vowed to honor. Shame took on the shape of habit. It began as words, comforting words, pastoral words. A woman in grief would come to my office, and I would listen until the weight in her voice pressed on me in the wrong places. I would offer counsel and then stay just a minute too long, leaning in to make sure she felt safe. In the dim parking lot afterward, we would exchange a phrase that seemed to belong to two people who had bared too much. I told myself that I was comforting a wounded soul. I told myself that it was ministry. The lies were small and clever. They were the language of duty. The house had become a study in small deceptions. The wedding photo in the hallway, us smiling, the sun woven into her veil, sat behind glass that made it look farther away than it once did. My wedding ring felt heavier on my finger when I thought of those messages I had sent and then deleted. At church on Sunday mornings, I would look at the congregation and imagine they could see the faint tremor beneath my collar, that they could smell the contrition I had not owned. I preached about purity and covenant with a conviction that sounded rehearsed even to me. Afterward, people would come to shake my hand and say words I had taught them to say. I would smile and wonder whether I had taught myself anything at all. Nights were the worst. The house would settle, and the hum of the refrigerator would sound like a clock marking decisions I had already made. I would lie awake listening to the small sound of my wife breathing next to me as if it were a mercy I had no right to. I would pick up my phone under the quilt and open a message thread that promised the wrong kind of attention. The messages were careful, embroidered in half-truths, in questions about feelings rather than facts. I would tell myself that I was not crossing a line because nothing physical had happened. I would tell myself that I was safe in emotional boundary. Then I would delete the thread and pray for sleep that would not come. I had become a man split at the seams. Publicly, I was the pastor who led. Privately, I was a man who needed to be seen by someone who would not ask for a title in return. The split made me brittle. My wife noticed the new rhythms. My late nights at the church, the meetings that seemed so necessary, my sudden desire for privacy when she sat beside me. She asked once, soft and cautious, "Are you all right, John?" I looked at her hands folded on her lap, and I felt like a child caught. I answered with the kind of calm that is shaped to avoid pain. "I'm tired," I said. "It has been a busy season." She leaned her head against me and said, "Tell me when you need me." I wanted to tell her everything. I could not. The tension accumulated in small ways that feel ridiculous to name when you are the one living them, but they're the fabric that produces a collapse. I began to pray in the morning with the Bible open and the same hunger in my chest I had when I woke alone. I began to counsel couples about honesty with a choked throat. I checked my phone in the middle of the night until my eyes blurred, and then I rose and pretended to pray so she would think I had been with God. The pressure of maintaining an image in the church, of being called to model faith, made every secret feel like a crime of the heart against every person who trusted me. The week the breaking point came, the church doors had been open until late for a special counseling night. I had sat for hours with parishioners, with people who carry their bruises into the light because they trust the place and the person behind the desk. There was a woman that evening whose grief was raw and whose need was plain. I sat with her longer than I should have, because when people leak truth, their truth feels like an invitation to rescue. She told me things with an honesty that made my chest ache. I listened, and then I spoke, and then I found myself speaking differently, softening my words, leaning in. Her tears were a mirror of something I had been avoiding. The office clock kept its patient tick. The parking lot lights cast long shapes. I did not notice the small shift until it had already happened. On the drive home, the radio felt too loud. I gripped the steering wheel as if that would steady the pull in my chest. The church building receded behind me, and my mind supplied a torrent of confessions I had not yet spoken aloud. I replayed the conversation and felt a shame so immediate that it made my stomach roll. As I pulled into the driveway, my hands were clammy and I could feel the hair on my arms rise. She met me in the kitchen doorway. She had been waiting for me to come home. Quietly, faithfully waiting, she asked why so late. Her voice was small. I answered in a way I had practiced. Measured, evasive, neat. It felt ridiculous to craft answers to the one person I knew I could not lie to without bleeding. She reached for my hand, and I pulled mine away. Not sharply, not in anger, but because I knew if I touched her I would break. The words I needed to say were heavy and unready. I could feel the weight of every half-truth pressing on my ribs. She said, "John, there's something different. You are here, but you are not with me." Her eyes searched mine for the kind of honesty I had promised on a day when both of us were terrified and hopeful in equal measure. I tried to say, "I am sorry," but the apology lodged like a stone in my throat. I felt lightheaded and nauseous, the world tilting at the edges. My vision blurred for a moment, as if someone had dimmed the lights in the room. I clutched the counter because my knees wanted to give. The sound of her voice receded into a distant, trembling echo. I managed to say, in a whisper that was almost prayer, "I am fine. It's just stress." She stepped closer and laid her palm on my chest. I felt the steady beat of my heart under her fingers, and then a sharp, hot pressure spread across my sternum. I remember the room stretching and the hum of the refrigerator widening into a great, slow sound. There was no dramatic collapse, no cinematic fall, just the body surrendering to something it had been carrying for too long. I sank to the floor, the tile cool under my cheek. My wife called my name. Her voice was the clearest thing in that dim span before everything dulled. I tried to form the words that would explain the 1,000 little betrayals and that would somehow stitch us back together, but the sound did not come. My breathing shallowly rode the edge of silence. My hand reached for hers and then trembled and dropped. Then the world went quiet in a way that felt like the end of things. As the world slipped away, truth came for me. I did not feel the moment my heart stopped. I only felt the moment something inside me loosened, then lifted like a thread snapping in a place deeper than the body. A soft crack of awareness drifted through me, and the sounds of my wife's voice bent away into a stretched, muffled echo. I hovered, not upward, not downward, just lifted. The ceiling blurred. The air thinned. My body lay below me, still and pale on the kitchen floor. My wife knelt over me, her hands trembling on my chest, calling my name with a desperation that made something inside me ache in a way pain never could. I tried to answer her. My voice made no sound. I reached toward her shoulder. My hand slid through her like mist. A cold, truthful ache spread across my awareness. Not harsh, just revealing. Like truth had temperature. I stared down at myself. Mouth slightly open, eyes half-lidded, skin draining of warmth. It was strange to recognize your own body and feel no control over it. Stranger still to realize how many lies that body carried, how many secrets it held behind a pastoral smile. A whisper moved through me, small, trembling, undeniable. I am dead. And right behind that whisper came another truth I had never let surface. Nothing I had died with me. The room thinned into gray. My wife's sobs warped into distant echoes, then faded altogether. The world dissolved. I drifted into a dim realm glowing with a warm red pulse, like light behind closed eyelids. I was standing on something, though my feet did not feel it. A walkway stretched beneath me, dark stone cracked with glowing molten lines, moving like slow rivers under the surface. Each step I took made the walkway respond, a soft pulse, as if the ground itself recognized my weight, my history. Heat brushed over my skin, not painful, but close enough to feel seen. From far away came the faint sound of sorrow, soft cries, the kind that come when truth catches up to someone who ran from it for too long. Those cries were not screams. They were regret given sound. Shadows moved around me, familiar shapes like fragments of memories. Some looked like me. Some looked like the people I had wounded without fully understanding how deeply. The air pressed against me with a heaviness that made every breath tremble, not to punish me, but to make me feel the weight of what I brought with me. Then something warm brushed past me, a faint whisper riding on it. My wife's voice, calling my name from the world I had left. It broke something inside me. I took another step, and the realm shifted around me. My wedding ring, still on my hand, began to glow. A red glow, slow, throbbing, like a pulse revealing every moment I ignored conviction, every message I deleted before stepping into the pulpit. It was not fire. It was memory made visible. Ahead of me, my marriage vows appeared in the air, soft words written in glowing script, curling at the edges, and then twisting into thin, delicate chains that hovered like truth waiting to be acknowledged. To my right, a marriage bed formed from dim embers, alive, warm, pulsing with a light that flickered with both comfort and pain. I walked closer and felt a crack inside my chest, because that bed used to be a sanctuary, and I had allowed shadows to follow me into it. Scrolls appeared along the walkway, unrolling themselves with crackling edges. Names, dates, decisions I pretended did not matter. Each scroll burned slowly at the edges, but never fully disappeared, as if the record was being illuminated, not destroyed. Then 2 names flickered in front of me, mine and my wife's side by side, not erased, but trembling, like something held together by grace and strain at the same time. My chest tightened. My breath trembled, because the realm was not accusing me. It was showing me what I had done. A ripple of light passed through the space. Then my memories stepped out, not like screens, not like videos, but silhouettes, soft, glowing outlines that carried the emotional weight of each moment. The first memory, me in my study, smiling at a message I never told my wife about, fingers moving quickly across the phone, delete, delete, delete. And in this realm, every deletion made the message glow brighter. The second memory, a counseling room, me sitting too close, my voice too soft, my expression too attentive, the kind of emotional intimacy that belonged only to my wife. The silhouette of the woman flickered, not accusing me, only showing what I created without admitting it. The third memory, me preaching about purity, Bible lifted, voice powerful. Yet behind that pulpit stood another silhouette of me, phone in hand, deleting an inappropriate thread minutes before declaring, "Guard your heart." That one broke me. The fourth memory, my wife, waiting alone at our dining table, hands folded, checking the time, whispering prayers for a husband she thought was merely tired. Her silhouette radiated warmth. Mine radiated excuses. I felt something inside my spirit collapse. The walkway beneath me pulsed harder. A thin chain wrapped around my left wrist, gentle, not painful, but tight enough to feel meaning. A vow stretched, twisted, ignored. The ring on my finger glowed deeper. The marriage bed cracked with a line of light beneath it. My name and my wife's name flickered again softly, like a covenant gasping for honesty. I fell to my knees, not forced, but because the weight of truth was finally heavier than my excuses. My breath broke apart. A tremor ran through my hands. The realm leaned closer, not to harm me, but to show me what I refused to see. My soul whispered, I never meant to. I never wanted to. I did not think it mattered. And the entire realm answered in a sorrowful, echoing tone. But it did. The words rippled through the realm, soft, sorrowful, unavoidable. I stayed on my knees, shaking, trying to inhale air that did not exist. The heaviness pressed deeper, not crushing, revealing, peeling away the parts of me I had learned to hide, even from myself. Something shifted in the air behind me, a warmth, a presence. Not a figure, not a face, but an awareness that carried authority and mercy in equal weight. The air brightened around me, just slightly like dawn trying to find a place to enter. I did not dare turn. My voice trembled out of me. Please, please not here. I know what I did. I know. A gentle hush fell over the realm, and then a voice, calm, clear, firm with love, spoke behind me. Jonathan, I froze. Every hidden place in me froze. You believed that your private compromises were small, the presence said. But nothing planted in the dark stays small. My knees buckled deeper. I covered my face with my hands, and the moment I did, light passed through them, showing me more silhouettes, more memories, more truth. The presence spoke again, softer, closer. You shepherded others while starving your own covenant. A sound escaped me, a broken, breathless exhale. I wanted to respond, but every word I had lived as a pastor felt like dust in my mouth. Then the presence said the one thing that shattered me completely. You gave other women the emotional safety that belonged to your wife. My entire body folded. I pressed my forehead to the molten walkway, feeling its warmth pulse like a heartbeat against my skin. Not pain, truth. The walkway flickered beneath me, and images shimmered across its surface. Images of times I comforted another woman with tenderness meant for the woman who prayed over me every night. Images of eyes I looked into too long, words I typed too gently, boundaries I crossed while convincing myself I was still righteous. I did not touch them. I whispered, my voice thin, desperate, trembling. I swear I did not. The presence interrupted with a calm that felt like judgment wrapped in love. Intimacy is not measured only by touch. The words hit me harder than any flame could have. You gave your heart in pieces. The presence continued. You told yourself it meant nothing because you never crossed a physical line, but you crossed the covenant line many times. The marriage vows turned chains drifted closer, curling gently around my arms, not binding me, not punishing me, simply showing me what my choices had shaped. Each vow whispered as it wrapped, you shall honor her. You shall be faithful. You shall keep your heart pure. You shall leave all others. Each vow glowed, then tightened softly. And with every soft tightening came a memory. Me deleting a message at midnight, telling my wife, I am just tired, leaning too close during counseling, letting someone else feel seen by a pastor whose wife felt invisible. My chest heaved. I am sorry, I whispered, choking on the words. I am so sorry. The presence moved even closer. I could feel the warmth pressing into the edges of my soul. Jonathan, confession is not the same as transformation. My breath caught. You felt guilt, the presence continued, but you did not turn. You felt conviction, but you called it fatigue. You felt warning, but you renamed it stress. A long, trembling silence stretched between us. Then the realm darkened, just slightly, and the symbolic consequences began to reveal themselves. The marriage bed beside me cracked wider, light seeping up like sorrow, illuminating the fractures I caused. My name and my wife's name flickered again, once bright, then dim, then struggling to hold steady. The ring on my hand glowed fiercely now, too bright to look at without feeling its meaning lodge inside my chest. You believed your reputation would protect you, the presence said. I let out a shuddering breath. Because it was true. You believed your position made you less accountable. The moment those words were spoken, another chain formed, this one around my right wrist, gentle, firm, symbolic. And you believed, the voice added, that because you preached purity, you were immune to impurity. The walkway shifted beneath me, grinding softly like stone remembering pain. A wave of sorrow swept over the realm, and suddenly another silhouette appeared. It was my wife, not her body, not her soul, but the wound she carried. A faint light outline, shoulders slumped, hands clasped, the silhouette of someone who loved deeply but felt something slipping away without knowing why. It broke me. I reached for her. My hand passed through, and I sobbed, a sound I had not made in years. I heard her. The words came out like pieces of me falling apart. I heard her without ever admitting it. The silhouette flickered. Then another one appeared beside it. Me, standing with my back to her, my phone in my hand, my face turned slightly away. Every part of that image was a wound. My voice cracked. Please, please tell her I loved her, please. The presence responded with a softness so heavy it felt like a weight settling over my entire existence. You loved her with your intentions, but not with your actions. I felt my soul collapse. Quietly, completely. The burning scrolls behind me unfurled all at once. Pages glowing with moments where honesty could have saved me, but I chose silence instead. The presence spoke again. Look, the walkway brightened, revealing a vast, molten river beneath the cracks. Its heat rose like breath from a wounded earth. Images floated on its surface. Moments of temptation I entertained, messages I answered, inward agreements I made. You fed the fire, the presence said, one small desire at a time. I cannot breathe. Every inhale felt like pulling truth into my lungs. My entire life's duplicity stood in front of me, undeniable, unedited, unveiled. I thought I could manage it. I whispered weakly. I thought I was still a good man. The presence moved so close, I felt like it was inside the very air around me. Goodness is not measured by intentions. Covenant is not measured by performance. And holiness cannot be borrowed from the people who trust you. A long silence filled the realm. And then, for the first time since arriving, I felt something shift. Not heat, not weight. Mercy. Faint, distant, fragile, but real. The chains around my wrists loosened just slightly. The glowing cracks beneath the marriage bed dimmed. My name and my wife's name flickered, but this time steadied for a moment before trembling again. I lifted my head, barely. The presence spoke again, gentler than before. There is a truth you have not yet seen. My heart clenched. What truth? I whispered. The presence paused, and the entire realm seemed to hold its breath. Then the voice spoke. Your sin did not only wound your marriage. It reshaped the man you were becoming. The ground pulsed. The light tightened. Something vast moved in the distance, approaching like revelation itself. And now, you must see who that man truly was. The air split with a soft rumble. Light rose from beneath the molten cracks. Shadows drew back like curtains. And in that moment, I knew the final truth was coming for me. And then, I saw him. The moment the presence said, there is a truth you have not yet seen. The ground under the molten walkway began to tremble. Softly at first, then with growing intent. A low, rumbling heat rose from beneath me. Not burning, but boiling with meaning. The cracks in the walkway widened, glowing brighter. And suddenly a reflection appeared in the molten river below. Not a shadow, not an angel, a man, a real man, standing in the fiery reflection. Staring up at me with eyes I recognized immediately. They were my eyes. But the man looking up at me was not the man I thought I was. He looked like a version of myself shaped by every small compromise, every deleted message, every secret emotional attachment, every time I smiled in the pulpit while hiding sin in my private world. His face looked worn, tired, drained from living two lives at once. His wedding ring was cracked, glowing faintly. His pastoral collar was stained with a dim red glow. Like every sermon I preached without purity had left a mark. He lifted his head, and even though he stood beneath me in the molten river, I heard him speak as clearly as if he were standing right in front of me. This is who you were becoming. My breath caught. No, I whispered. No, that is not me. That is not who I am. But the man in the molten reflection stepped closer, and the fire beneath him pulsed with each step, like the ground itself was agreeing with his words. He raised his hand, and a series of images appeared in the molten surface beside him. Me sitting in my office late at night, typing messages with a smile meant only for my wife. Me leaning too close to a woman I counseled. Me turning my phone screen away. Me preaching about purity while hiding impurity in my pocket. Me lying to my wife with calm, practiced ease. Each image burned onto the molten surface, like truth written in fire. The reflection spoke again, his voice raw and frighteningly familiar. You prayed like a pastor, but your desires were shaping another version of you. The walkway shook under my knees. You fed me, he said, raising his cracked hand. Every time you flirted with someone emotionally, a flare of fire shot upward. Every time you sought validation from a woman who was not your wife, another flare. Every time you hid behind ministry to feel important, the fire grew hotter. Every time you told your wife you were tired, when you were really avoiding your own guilt, the molten river roared beneath us. His voice deepened, not evil, not demonic, but heavy with the truth I never admitted. You kept feeding me, and I was becoming stronger than the man you showed the world. He lifted his head fully now, and the sight froze me. His eyes, my eyes, were filled with the hunger of unrestrained desire. Not lust you see in movies. No, lust that grows from unconfessed sin. Quiet, cunning, fed drop by drop. You thought you were still a good man. His voice cracked, but you were one choice away from becoming me. The words punched the breath from me. I shook my head violently. I love my wife. I preached truth. I tried. You lied to yourself, the reflection said sharply. The walkway pulsed. Heat rose. The presence behind me stayed silent, allowing me to face what I had created. The reflection lifted both hands, and a thick chain emerged from the molten river, a chain forged from my own broken promises. Each link carried a word: secrets, lies, pride, flattery, desire, comfort, compromise. The chain wrapped around the reflection's arms, not as punishment, but as revelation. These are the choices that built me. He took a step closer, and now his face was inches from mine, separated only by the surface of the molten river. I am the man you would have become, he whispered, if you had lived long enough. I collapsed forward, my hands sinking into the warm cracks of the walkway. Please. My voice shook uncontrollably. I did not know. I did not see. The presence finally spoke. Soft, firm, heartbreaking. You saw enough. Lightning like veins of light shot through the walkway, glowing under my knees, spreading outward like truth breaking through stone. You felt conviction, and you ignored it. You felt a warning, and you renamed it stress. You felt me pulling you back, and you called it fatigue. Each word hit like a slow, emotional hammer. The reflection's face softened, not cruel, not mocking, but grieving. You were so close, he whispered. So close to losing everything while still believing you were fine. He stepped back into the molten glow. His body dissolved into light, not burned, but absorbed. And what rose in his place was not a man, but my potential future, a dim, human-shaped outline. A pastor with no purity, a husband with no honesty, a man with no boundaries. The presence spoke again. Sin is not just what you did, it is who you were becoming. The outline flickered once, twice, then shattered into sparks of red light. The walkway beneath me trembled violently. The molten river surged upward like a wave of truth. The marriage bed cracked in two. My ring glowed with near-blinding heat, and I heard the presence say, "Now, Jonathan, you must see the consequence your choices carried into your covenant." The walkway split directly beneath me, light blasting upward, heat roaring, truth rising, and then everything I believed about the covenant, and everything I assumed God would overlook, split open before my eyes. The walkway beneath me cracked wide, a single line of molten light shooting forward like a blade slicing through stone. The heat surged upward, warm at first, then rising into a holy fire that felt like truth being pulled out of its hiding place. I staggered backward, breath shaking. The ground pulsed once, twice, then stopped beneath my feet as if waiting for me to understand what was about to be shown. The presence spoke, its voice echoing through the glowing realm. Jonathan, you saw who you were becoming. Now you must see what your choices did to the covenant you made. The moment those words left the air, the chains formed from my vows lifted themselves from ground. Slowly, softly, deliberately, they stretched outward like living lines of memory. Each vow glowed brighter. Each link hummed with the weight of promises I had spoken with sincerity and broken in secret. The chain around my wrist tightened, not violently, but with meaning, as if the vow itself was speaking. You said you would protect her heart. Another vow chain wrapped softly around my other wrist. You said your heart belonged to her alone. A third chain rose from the cracked marriage bed and curled upward, touching my chest. You said you would keep yourself only unto her. I wanted to collapse again, but the chains held my arms out, not to punish me, but to make me face what I refused to face. The marriage bed, cracked in two, glowed brighter. Light seeped upward like smoke made of memory. The room grew hotter, not with pain, but with exposure. I watched as a faint, glowing imprint of my wife appeared above the bed. Not her soul, not her spirit, just the emotional wound she carried because of me. Her imprint held her hands over her chest, and a soft red crack ran through the space where her heart would be. My voice broke. I hurt her. I hurt her so deeply without ever touching another woman. I did this. The presence answered gently. You wounded her with what you withheld, with attention she never received, with tenderness you gave elsewhere, with the honesty she begged for, but you denied her. My knees buckled, but the vow chains held me upright, making sure I witnessed every truth. You believed you were innocent because nothing physical occurred. The presence said softly, but covenant is not broken only by the body. It is broken by the heart, by the thoughts, by the secret agreements you made with desire. The molten cracks beneath me ignited, and a column of warm fire rose between the split walkway. Inside that fire, I saw the truth. Not hellfire, not torment, covenant fire. The fire God uses to seal two souls together, and the fire that reveals what happened when one soul turned away. The column flickered, revealing images within it. My wife praying alone, hands gripping her pillow, whispering, God, bring him back to me. Me sitting in my office, typing a message I knew would make another woman feel chosen. The fire shifted, showing the gap between those two moments. A terrifyingly small gap. I cover my face with both hands, but the chain of vows pulled them away again, forcing me to see what I avoided in life. The presence spoke with a sorrow that felt like thunder pressed through velvet. Jonathan, covenant is not paper, is not words, is not a ring, is the joining of two hearts beneath my fire. And when you gave your heart to another place, you pulled away from a flame that was meant to hold you together. The fire roared upward for a moment, but still did not burn. It revealed. The ring on my hand glowed with such intensity that I cried out, the heat forcing me to see everything I did not want to see. Images flashed in the fire. Times I avoided intimacy because guilt made it hard to look at my wife. Times I texted someone else to feel admired. Times I chose flattery over honesty. Times I preached about marriage while secretly weakening my own. Each image burned through the air like a verdict I already knew. I whispered, please, please, I cannot take any more. But the presence answered with love wrapped in firmness. You must, because covenant without truth is only ceremony. And truth without consequence produces no change. The entire realm grew dim. quiet, as if the world itself was inhaling. Then something miraculous, terrifying, holy, happened. The chains around my wrists loosened, just slightly. The fire calmed. The bed glowed softer. The cracks in the walkway narrowed. And the presence stepped closer, closer than it had been the entire time. I felt mercy in the air, not the soft mercy I preached about on Sundays, not the shallow mercy we tell ourselves to avoid accountability. Real mercy, mercy that corrects, mercy that cleans, mercy that heals through honesty. Jonathan, the presence whispered, "You are seeing truth, because truth still wants you." My breath hitched. "You are here because you strayed, not because you were forsaken." The heat in the realm softened. The chains slowly began to lift away from my wrists, not falling, but dissolving into small drops of light. The marriage bed's cracks started to glow with healing instead of judgment. My name and my wife's name flickered, then steadied together. I fell to my knees, hands shaking uncontrollably. "Please," I whispered into the glowing air, "tell me there's hope for me. Tell me I can go back. Tell me I can make this right." The presence stepped so close, I felt its warmth like a hand cupping my face. "There is hope, but there is one more truth you must see." My heart stopped, even in a place where hearts no longer beat. "What truth?" I whispered. The molten walkway beneath me trembled. The fire dimmed. The air tightened, as if preparing to reveal the deepest cut of all. The presence spoke. "The consequence you have not yet faced is the consequence of what your sin almost destroyed." A soft crack tore through the realm. The fire curved like a doorway opening. Light poured out, blinding, honest, unescapable. And Jonathan, the presence said, its voice heavy with divine sorrow, "What you see next will change you forever." As the light swallowed everything. And for a moment, I felt suspended between breath and eternity, between consequence and possibility. The realm around me grew silent, a silence so deep it felt like the pause between a question and its answer. Then, I heard something, a faint, distant sound, soft at first, then sharper, closer, a voice. My name, Jonathan. "Jonathan, stay with us." The light tore open. My chest convulsed. Air slammed back into my lungs like a tidal wave. I gasped, a violent, shaking gasp that dragged fire and cold into my ribs at the same time. The ceiling above me blurred. Bright white lights, cold metal, hands pressing on my chest, voices shouting, machines beeping, oxygen masks shifting, his pulses back. Keep him stabilized. My eyes fluttered open, the world spinning, the atmosphere too bright, too loud, too human. A nurse leaned over me, breath trembling from the effort of bringing me back. But I was not listening to her, because somewhere in the room, pressed against the wall, was my wife, hands over her mouth, tears streaming, still whispering prayers even though they told her I was breathing. When my gaze found hers, her knees almost buckled. "John," she breathed, "just my name." But the pain and relief in her voice cut straight through the last layers of hardness in my heart. I tried to speak. My throat failed. Only a soft, broken sound came out. They moved her closer. She took my hand, and the warmth of her fingers made everything inside me collapse at once. I felt tears. I had not cried in years. Her thumb stroked my skin as if afraid I would disappear if she stopped. "You came back," she whispered, her voice trembling through every syllable. "You came back to me." My lips shook. I closed my eyes and whispered the only words I could form. "I saw everything." She frowned gently, leaning closer. "What do you mean?" More tears fell. My chest rose and fell too quickly. My voice cracked with every breath. "I hurt you," I whispered. "I hurt you in ways you never saw. And God showed me what I became." A soft sob escaped her. She pressed her forehead to our joined hands. "I just wanted you to be honest with me." Honest. That word burned more than any fire I saw in the realm of covenant consequence. They kept me in the hospital for 2 nights. Through every hour, through every test, through the silent moments, I replayed everything I had seen. The the man I had been becoming, the vows I broke without physical betrayal, the cracks I caused in my marriage, the fire of revelation that had shown me the truth. When they finally allowed visitors, my wife sat beside the bed. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but soft, hopeful, waiting. I took her hand. This time, I did not pull away. I have to tell you the truth, I said, my voice trembling. All of it. She looked afraid, but she nodded. I never touched anyone, I whispered, but I gave parts of my heart away. I entertained attention. I enjoyed being admired. I deleted messages. I let boundaries blur. I hid behind ministry to avoid confronting my own desires. I put you in a place where you felt alone while I felt seen by someone else. She cried quietly, not angrily, not accusingly, just truthfully. When did it start? She whispered. When I stopped guarding my heart, I said, and when I started believing I could handle temptation without confessing it. She looked away, covering her mouth. Pain moved across her face like a shadow. But there was something else too. Relief. Relief that truth had finally entered our home. I thought I was losing you, she whispered. I could feel you slipping away, and I did not know why. I was slipping, I admitted. And I was becoming someone I did not recognize. Until God showed me exactly who that man was. I told her everything. What I saw in the molten realm. Who I was becoming. What my secrets almost destroyed. The fire of covenant. The weight of vows. The presence that confronted me. The version of myself waiting in the fire. She held my hand tightly as my voice shook with every confession. John, she said softly. Thank you. I stared at her, confused. Thank you. She nodded, tears falling. Because you came back different. Because you came back honest. Because you came back ready to love me the way I prayed for. Her words wrapped around my heart like the softest chain. Not binding, but anchoring. I cried again. In the days that followed, I stepped down from preaching. Not forced, not punished, willingly, because I needed to rebuild the man behind the sermons. Before I ever stood on a stage again, confession became my daily discipline. Boundaries became strict, even uncomfortable. No private counseling with women. No late-night chats. No blurred emotional lines. No secrecy. No deleted threads. My phone became open. My heart became available. My integrity became guarded with the same intensity one once guarded my image. My marriage changed too. Slowly, patiently, honestly. We prayed together in ways we had not prayed in years. We cried together. We asked questions. We healed with the help of mentors and accountability partners. Every morning, I woke with the memory of that molten walkway, a reminder of where I was headed and what grace pulled me away from. One night, weeks after I came home, my wife and I sat on the edge of her bed. She touched my ring. Her fingers lingered there, soft, loving, for the first time in a long time. You almost lost this, she whispered. I nodded, tears forming. And I almost lost you. She leaned into me, her head on my shoulder. But you did not, she said softly. God gave you back to me. I closed my eyes, and I whispered a quiet vow to her. A vow rebuilt through fire, strengthened through truth, sealed through mercy. I will never make you compete with my secrets again. The room grew still. Peace, real peace, wrapped around us. Later that week, I stood alone in the church sanctuary. Empty chairs, soft lights. The pulpit where I once preached with authority now only reminded me of the responsibility of truth. I placed my hand on my heart. My sin did not start with a moment. I whispered. It started with small permissions. And then I remembered the final words the presence spoke to me as the light swallowed everything. Teach them what you learned, so they will not walk where you walked. So I began again, not as a perfect man, not as a polished pastor, but as someone who had seen the spiritual cost of hidden sin and the mercy that rescued me from becoming someone I no longer recognized. When I finally recorded my testimony, I began with one sentence, the truest sentence I have ever spoken. The sin you hide does not disappear. It waits for you in the place where the covenant is revealed. My heart steadied, my voice softened, and I whispered to the audience, choose honesty now, before the truth has to find you later. Then before you leave this video, I want you to do something small but powerful. Tell me in the comments what kind of woman you desire to marry, or what kind of partner you're praying God will bring into your life. Describe the qualities, the heart, the purity, the character you long for. There's something healing about putting it into words, and there is something powerful about letting heaven hear it through your confession. And if you have already found that person, tell us who they are to you, and thank God for them publicly. Share this with a few of your close people, and let your gratitude strengthen someone else who is still waiting. Tap the notification bell so you never miss the next testimony. These stories are not entertainment. They are warnings, they are mercy, they are invitations to protect your covenant before you even enter one. And I want to speak a short prayer over you right now. Whoever you are, wherever you are watching this from. Father, I pray for everyone listening, for the one who is single, for the one who is searching, for the one who is healing from hurt, or waiting for your timing. Give them a partner who honors you, someone who will love them with honesty, purity, and patience. Protect their future marriage from hidden sin, from emotional traps, and from every counterfeit connection. Let their covenant be strong, truthful, faithful, and guided by your Spirit. As they type their desires in the comments, hear them, Lord, and answer according to your purpose. In Jesus' name, amen. If that prayer is yours, just type amen in the comments and let heaven record your agreement.